Well, we are very pleased to invite back to our speaker's podium Jackie Hawkins. And her topic today is where there is a will, there is many ways. There are many ways. Jackie is an ordained Unity minister, and for a number of years, she was the senior minister out at Unity of the Heartland in Olathe, Kansas. And we've been blessed with her presence before and have always enjoyed her perspectives and inspiration. She currently serves on the Unity Leadership Recruitment and Development Team, and she now resides in San Marcos, California. Jackie, welcome to the Center for Universal Oneness.
Thank you, Doug. Hello, everyone. It's so good to see everyone again today. And to get us started, I want to set the tone for our lesson today on the power of will. And to set that tone, we're going to listen to some Daniel Nahmod. I think many of you are familiar with the music of Daniel Nahmod, his gorgeous voice and his amazing piano playing. And so the song that we will first listen to is We Can Try. And I selected this song because it really speaks to our power of will. I think you will agree with me. So I'm just going to bring it up.
Maybe we can never house the homeless, rid the streets of violence and crime, make the world a safe place for our children, but we can try. Maybe we can never feed the hungry, chase every warplane from the sky, do away with ignorance and hatred, but we can try. Oh yeah. Sometimes I feel so helpless, 'cause all I can do is my best. But even the longest journey begins with a single step. Maybe we can't always find forgiveness, give our wildest dreams the wings to fly. Maybe we won't always love our neighbors, but we can try. Always find forgiveness, give our wildest dreams the wings to fly. Maybe we won't always love our neighbors, but we can try. Oh, we can try.
We're all
I love Daniel Nahmad. He always has the perfect message and music. And so we can try. Trying is part of the power of will. And I hope you listen to some of the lyrics that Daniel Nahmad was speaking about. You know, each day we are faced with many choices. We can choose to be patient, or we can choose to be impatient, right? We can choose to be compassionate, or we can choose to be cruel. We can even choose to do nothing. But in that choice to do nothing, we are making a choice. We are choosing. Each of us as individuals was created with free will. Each of us has the ability to choose freely. And I tell you, if you want to see an individual really fulfilling all of their power of will, just be in the space of a 2-year-old. Recently, I had that opportunity. And when I was in that space, it was a friend of mine who has a 2-year-old. I then remembered, oh, okay, that's why I had children when I was much younger. But a 2-year-old, even with that, exerting their free will, their power, you know, and making their choices, they're still amateurs when it comes to commitment, right? One minute they want one toy, the next minute they want another toy. And then the next minute they want both toys or a different toy. But you know, even babies are not the only ones who have challenges in making choices and sticking with those choices. We're all challenged at some time or another in making our commitments. And oftentimes, you know, people think that when you're talking about living from your divine power of will, that you're talking about willfulness, as in a 2-year-old. Or they're talking about doggedly willing something to happen. But that's not what we're talking about. In utilizing our divine power of will. At least that's not what I'm talking about this morning. Living from our divine power of will is about willingness. It's about choice. It's about commitment. And I'd like to pull these up again on the screen. So we have the opportunity in utilizing our divine power of will to choose who we want to be friends with, to make a commitment when, you know, Doug says he's going to climb that mountain. Well, my gosh, when he's on that mountain, he better be committed to making that choice, because he is up there high up on that mountain. And my goodness, it requires commitment if he's going to get up or if he's going to come down. And also in terms of being willing. I like this picture of this canyon being carved out by soft water wearing down the hardest of rocks, wearing down the hardest of stones. And you know, we get to choose and use in utilizing our divine power of will. We get to choose every day, over and over. We even get to choose in every moment. The divine power of will that each of us possesses enables us to express what we are, who we are, and what we want in life, how we want to live our lives. You may be thinking, but there are many societal issues that prevent us from living using our free will. Well, yes, there are societal issues that sometimes put roadblocks in the way of us being able to live out our choices. But even so, we still possess the divine power of will and are able to choose the way we want to live. It is, as I see on that picture, it requires us to be persistent and consistent in our commitments as we make our choices. It's through this consistency and persistence as we apply our will that we can create the kind of beauty in our lives that we want. So very often, in our humanness, we choose impatience rather than patience. We choose short-sightedness rather than seeing the long view. And before I go any further in our lesson today on the power of will, I'd like to share a funny story with you. At least I think it's a funny story. And there are two main characters in this humorous story. There's the senior minister of a church, and there's the minister of music of the church. And this is how it goes. A church got a new senior minister who the music minister immediately disliked. Eventually, their conflict spilled into the Sunday services. The first week, the senior minister preached about commitment and how everyone in the congregation should dedicate their lives to serving one another. And so then the minister of music, after the sermon, led the song, "I Shall Not Be Moved." The second week, the senior minister preached about tithing and how the congregants really needed to contribute to the church, because after all, they were part of the church and the church was running through their giving. Well, after his sermon, the minister of music led the song, "Jesus Paid It All." The third week, the senior minister preached about gossiping and how the congregants should watch what they're saying about one another. And so you can just imagine what the minister of music played after that sermon. She led the song, "I Love to Tell the Story." At this point, the senior minister is really frustrated and actually embarrassed by the conflict, the feud that the minister of music was continually perpetuating and disrupting the service. And so he told the congregation that the next week he was thinking of resigning. And so after he made this declaration, the minister of music led the song, "Oh, Why Not Tonight?" Well, and sure enough, the senior minister resigned. And in his farewell sermon the next Sunday, he told the congregation that as Jesus had called him to this church, Jesus was now calling him away from the church. and the minister of music led the final song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Well, I hope you found that as humorous as I did. Being a preacher's kid, I definitely saw the humor in it. But of course, that was not the end of this story. And in fact, you get to write the rest of the story. You get to write the rest of the story in the same way that you get to write your own life story. And as you write the rest of this story, if you so choose, I invite you to think about what the divine power of will truly means. It means it is less about exerting control over what is happening, and it is more about choosing our response to what is happening. The divine power of will. It's more about it's less about exerting control over what is happening and more about choosing our response to what is happening. I know we've all been through some serious challenges this past year and a half or more. Challenges that have required us to utilize our power of will. It's required us to make choices that have sometimes been difficult and other times merely inconvenient. And some of those choices have had life-threatening consequences. We're here today because of the many choices that we have made, not just in the past year and a half, but throughout our lives. We're here because of our willingness to be connected with each other. We're here because we have chosen to be in a space of spiritual unfoldment and spiritual deepening and love and understanding how we get into our inner peace and respect for each other, regardless of our differences. Or perhaps because we enjoy the diversity that our differences represent. While we know that each individual is created with free will, and each of us has the inherent ability to choose freely, the question is, how? How do we choose to use this divine power? How do we choose? That is a question for each of us. And it's a question that each of us has the opportunity to answer in each moment. I like what Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, said about free will. He said, free will is the ability to gladly do that which I must do. The ability to gladly do what I must do. And as I thought about that description of free will that Carl Jung spoke about decades ago, I said, okay, I can relate to that. I can understand, how I gladly do what I must do. But I also know There are times as I make my choice, I make my decision, that there is a sense of doubt that I have once I've made my decision. And then, even though I have made my decision freely, there is doubt. Well, I think still that is free will for me. There are many stories in the history of the world, actually, where people have used their free will, their inherent power of will, to change the course of their lives, to change the course of history. And in every human struggle, there have been countless heroes and sheroes who've demonstrated Carl Jung's description of free will. They've had no reluctance to change the course of history, to go against the status quo. And I think their demonstration also speaks to their courage, their fortitude, and their faith. Just recently, I'm sure you have read or seen in the news the challenges, I would say, that one Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and author had with a certain university in North Carolina. That university offered her a very prestigious position, but they offered her that without tenure, while others before her who had held that same position were granted tenure. Well, it was interesting, all of the back and forth. And I just, stood witness to the grace that she had in moving through that situation. And then in the 11th hour, when the University of North Carolina had to basically fish or cut bait, as they would say, they decided to then, include the tenure once they had received such an outcry of protest from others, including other faculty members. Well, in all of her grace, the Nicole Hannah-Jones decided with her free will that she would choose a different opportunity. Because when it was going and when all of this was going on, UNC was not the only choice that she had. There were many other universities around the country who wanted her. And her willingness, her opportunity to use her power of will to make a decision, to commit, was finally done in a way that brought her happiness, brought her peace, and certainly made the other university, Howard University, pleased. Where there's a will, there are many ways. And as I think about the power of will and what we have in our cachet of divine power, I think of happiness. Happiness is our choice. Happiness is not a result. We choose to be happy. I choose to be happy. You have a choice to be happy. It's not about someone else and what they do or don't do. You have the choice to make through your power of will. So I ask again, how do you choose to use your divine power of will? And how do we choose to live as one? Recently at the Unity People's Convention, held virtually, of course, a resolution was shared. A resolution on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that resolution was written and shared to demonstrate how the current leaders of Unity Worldwide Ministries are choosing to lead. Because you know what? The power of will includes the ability to lead. And Unity Worldwide Ministries leadership understood that this was a critical point in time, that they had to make a point. They had to be willing to stand up for what is right. Because for the longest time, while Unity has professed to be a welcoming spiritual movement, not everyone has been welcomed. And so here was the right time as a group of individuals came together and met with leadership and discussed the issues and said, are you willing to commit? This is yours to do. And the leadership said, yes, yes, we choose to lead. And so the power of will in our individual lives and our collective lives includes our ability to lead. The resolution is a commitment to lead in ways that is clear to everyone, that everyone is included. I love what cultural anthropologist Margaret Mead said. Never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Where there is a will, there are many ways. And so let us affirm together. I use my divine power of will through my willingness, my choices, my commitment. I am willing. And I'll bring that up on the screen. Together, I use my divine power of will through my willingness, my choices, and commitment. I am willing. I am willing. And to ground our lesson today, we're now going to move into a time of meditation. And before we go into meditation, we're again going to have Daniel Nehemiah to set the tone. And the song that I chose is My Soul Remembers. And I chose this song because the divine power of will is seated in our souls. It is seated in our souls just as the divine power of love is seated in our souls. So now I invite you to close your eyes, if you choose to take a deep breath, to get comfortable in listening to the music and the words of Daniel Nahmad as he assists us in grounding our lesson on the power of will. Oops, sorry about that.
My soul remembers your voice when all I hear is frustration and doubt. My soul remembers your grace when the hurt is searing as a desert. Still I never go without. My soul remembers. My soul remembers your touch when my body yearns to be cradled like a child. My soul remembers your strength when a heavy burden's weighing on me. I am sheltered all the while, sheltered all the while, whether at war or at peace, awake or asleep, whether I'm walking the streets or diving the ocean deep, whether it's winter or spring, whether I cry or sing. Oh, my soul remembers. My soul remembers your power when I fear I cannot do what must be done. My soul remembers your mercy, blessing the deepest doubt I harbor with the heat of the sun, with the kiss of the sun, whether at war or at peace, awake or asleep, whether I'm walking the streets or diving the ocean deep, whether it's winter or spring, whether I cry or sing. Oh, my soul remembers. Oh, my soul remembers. Oh, my soul remembers.
As we continue to be in this space of tranquility, the space of understanding that at our depth of soul, we have the power of will. that we can utilize each and every moment. And we take this knowing into the silence, into the silence. And as we bring our awareness back into this sacred space where each of us resides individually and yet collectively, we remember at the depths of our soul that we truly have and utilize the power of will. And so it is. And so we let it be. Amen and namaste.